Okay, we're going to get started. Hello and welcome everyone to Policy Palooza. This is part one of our training. My name is Katie Williams. I'm the manager of partnerships here at DC Public Schools. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're really glad to see you all here. As I mentioned, this is part one of our Policy Palooza training. This training is geared specifically towards new school program providers or any other existing partners looking for a refresher on our DCPS partner onboarding requirements. Tomorrow, we will be hosting part two of this training, where we will go into further detail about key policies and requirements around student safety, equitable access to programming, and media and events. This training is required for both new and returning partners. If you cannot attend that training, a recording will be available. One will also be available of this training. So more information on the training will be available at the end of this presentation for part two. Today's training is being recorded and closed captions are available. We will circulate the recording and the PowerPoint deck after the training. If you would like to access live captioning during the meeting, you can go to the right-hand corner of your screen. You should see three dots that says more, and then you can click language and speech and show live captions. So thank you in advance for your attention today. Please don't hesitate to put questions in our Q&A box. We will have designated time at the end to address them. So a quick agenda for today, we're going to discuss the objectives of this training. We'll introduce our DCPS partnerships team. Then we'll dive into the meat of this training on the requirements for school program providers, talk about some systems and resources to help you throughout the process. We'll preview our training tomorrow and then provide you with our contact information. And then, as I mentioned, leave time at the end for a Q&A. So today's session will be an overview of the processes and procedures for DCPS school program providers for school year 26-27. We will not go into every detail on each slide. This training is really meant to be a resource for you all to come back to as you're navigating this process. We've included many links and references in the slide deck. So when we share the recording and the deck with you later, you can always come back to it to access those resources. But the objectives are today is to, one, discuss how DCPS works with our partners, share requirements for our school program providers, review our systems and resources and how to access them, and then answer any of your outstanding questions. So this is an overview of our team. As I mentioned, I am Katie, and I'm the manager on the partnerships team, which includes our director of partnerships, Abby, as well as our chief, Kara Tyler, who leads our broader Office of External Affairs. Also joining us is Sadie Dodge. She is our AmeriCorps Vista Fellow this year. We're very grateful to have her on our team supporting our work. The objective or our focus of our team is to build the capacity of school administrators, educators, and central services to effectively leverage partnerships so that schools, partners, and DCPS central services can maximize their collective impact on core organizational goals and priorities. So these organizational goals and priorities are outlined in our capital commitment. This is DCPS's 5-year strategic plan that kicked off in 2023 and will be ending in 2028. We have 3 strategic priority areas. They're succeeding academically, connected to schools, and prepared for what's next. So these goals directly inform the work across our schools and district. And when you register as a school program provider, if you have already, you'll notice that you'll be asked how your program aligns with these priorities. So we really encourage you to familiarize yourself with them and these 3 goals and think about how your work can contribute to them, particularly when you're having introductory conversations with schools about new partner opportunities. So next, I'll review the definition of a school program provider. We use this term a lot to talk about a subset of partners that we work with. So an SPP is an organization that provides its own programming to DCPS students, works with students 3 or more times per school year, and is not a health or mental health provider. Given the nature of the services that health or mental health providers are providing, there's a separate vetting process through our health and mental health team for those services. So some examples of SPPs include tutoring programs, mentoring programs, dance class providers, aftercare providers, general enrichment programming. Example that would not include SPPs are field trip opportunities, volunteer groups, dental health providers, or curriculum vendors. So again, it's really that regular programming that's student facing, that requires direct collaboration with the schools. So because school program providers do work so closely with DCPS and our students, there are several policies and procedures that they must follow to protect our students in the district. So this is an overview of all the requirements for SPPs. We're going to review each one of these in more depth in the upcoming slides. And we really rely on schools and our providers to ensure that all of these steps are completed before programming begins. So I know there's a lot of boxes to check to be a DCPS partner. So as I mentioned, there are a lot of tools and resources that we've created to help you navigate this process. So on our website, you'll find two resources in particular to help when you're getting started. One is our partner preparedness checklist that goes through all the different requirements that you'll need to have in place before programming begins. And then if you're just starting out thinking about partnering with DCPS, you're not really sure where to begin, we have this Where Do I Start quiz that will help ask a few questions and help lead you in the right direction. And then you can always, of course, reach out to our team. So the very first step to becoming a school program provider is registering in our partnerships database. This registration allows your organization to share information with schools about your programming, while also ensuring that you are aware of our policies and procedures before moving forward with working with the district. This is also how we collect contact information for our partners to communicate key updates from our office via our email and our newsletter. This registration is reconfirmed annually in order to stay active in our database. That annual reconfirmation is coming up at the end of this month and early next month. So if you already registered, please keep an eye on your email for that process. You'll please note that being registered in our database is not a green light to begin programming. Once you're registered, that is the very first step, and there are additional requirements that you must complete, which I'll go over next. Before that, though, one pop quiz. So if you see the React icon in the top of your screen, you'll be able to answer this question. If it's true, you'll put the thumbs up icon. If it's false, you'll put the surprise face icon. So true or false, an organization providing health or mental health services is considered a school program provider. Great. I see lots of surprised faces, meaning that yes, it is false. These organizations are not considered school program providers. They do need to go through a separate vetting process with our health services and school mental health team. So after you've registered in our database, the next step is to partner with a school or a central services team. So as I mentioned, registering as an SPP does not guarantee your placement in a school. It does not mean you're ready to go. So if you have not already identified a school or central services program team to partner with, we have a few tips to help you make that initial introduction. So always, if you are locally based in a specific neighborhood, this is a great introduction to show your connection to the community, to that specific ward or neighborhood. You can email principals and schools with whom you're interested in partnering to discuss your program and its benefits to students. On our website, each school has a comprehensive school plan where they outline their school-specific priorities for the year. So in addition to our district-wide priorities, each school sets goals. So we do recommend, if you are interested working with the school, looking at that, seeing how your program might be able to support that, and then specifically mentioning those priorities and how you'd be able to support in your introduction emails to schools. You can reach out to us to see if there are any specific needs that your programming may address that we have heard of from schools. And then also you can consider reaching out to relevant central services content teams to demonstrate how your program is aligned with our DCPS strategic priorities. And you can find all these links and resources on our website. So the third and typically the longest step in the process is obtaining a formal agreement with DCPS. So in addition to registering in the database, all SPPs must have an official agreement with DCPS. This can either be in the form of a memorandum of agreement, which you'll often heard called an MOA, or a purchase order / PO. If you are not invoicing DCPS directly for services, you will need an MOA. So this includes partners that are receiving grant funding for programming. This includes DC government grants. When you're charging families but not charging the school, or you are paid by the school's PTA or another entity. School program provider MOAs are typically good for 5 years unless stated otherwise. If you are invoicing DCPS directly for services, you will need to establish a purchase order. That goes through our procurement system to ensure that there's a vehicle for payment. So contracts and purchase orders are typically managed directly by the school and issued by the Central Services Office of Contracts and Acquisitions, or OCA. They will usually expire at the end of the fiscal year, which is September 30th. And you must be registered as a DC government vendor to be issued a PO and receive payment. So we have some guidance on our website to register as a vendor. Please note this is a separate process from registering as a school program provider. While that's a DCPS process, in order to register as a vendor, you must register with the entire city. So it's a DC government process. One important note, school principals are not allowed to sign agreements with SPPs. So you might notice if you send something to principals, they will often include us or our Office of General Counsel. All official partnership agreements must be signed by the DCPS chancellor if it's an MOA, or the contracting officer if it's a purchase order. In some cases, schools can sign what we call partner acknowledgement forms that outline logistics items and general roles and expectations, but do not include any legal language. So if you do have questions about that, you can please reach out to us. So how do you know if you have a valid MOA? We know can be turnover in your organization. These MOAs are good for 5 years. So we have a couple ways that you can check. So for SPPs who are not charging DCPS directly, you can check with our team. You can look in your database profile to see whether you have an MOA on file and its expiration date. If you do need a copy of your MOA, please reach out to our team and we'd be happy to send you that. If you are a paid program provider, meaning that the school is paying for your services directly, then please check the DC vendor portal or contact your school or central services point of contact for confirmation that that purchase order is valid. So I'm not going to go over this in a lot of detail, but I just want you to get an overview of the MOA process. And this is really to show you that this can take time to complete. We do estimate that MOAs can take upwards of 90 days to finalize. So if your MOA is set to expire soon, or if you're hoping to start programming at the beginning of the school year, please start this process as soon as possible. As shown in the previous slide, insurance requirements are a part of this process. This is typically what causes it to take so much time, as they're determined by the DC Office of Risk Management, which is a separate DC government agency. So there's some additional coordination that's involved there. These requirements do vary, but all SPPs should expect to see at a minimum the following. So there's commercial general liability insurance, auto insurance, if you are transporting students at all, workers' compensation and employer liability, if you have any employees, cyber liability insurance, umbrella excess liability insurance, and then sexual abuse and molestation insurance. So any insurance negotiations need to be done through the DC Office of Risk Management, and we can certainly help to support with that coordination and communication. However, neither DCORM nor DC Public Schools are able to recommend insurance providers. So we do recommend, if you're having trouble obtaining these requirements, to work with a broker or contact other community-based organizations to get guidance on different providers out there for different insurance providers. As mentioned, one of the most time-consuming parts of this process is getting your insurance in place. Again, I won't go through all of this in detail, but this is all to just show how many steps are involved in the process and why it can take so much time. So we ask that you please work closely with your insurance broker to ensure that when you're submitting your insurance documents to us, that includes all requested information for review to prevent delays and unnecessary back and forth. If you are a Learn24 grantee, you will have already gone through an insurance review process during the grantee process. So in order to expedite this, you can send us your current COI and the email confirmation from Learn24, and that will help to expedite the process. All right, another pop quiz. So again, true, thumbs up, false, surprise face. The principal at the school in which I'm providing programming should sign my DCPS MOA. Correct. Great students here. Everyone's saying false. Yes, principals are not allowed to sign agreements with SPPs. They must be signed by the chancellor if it's an MOA or the contracting officer if it's a purchase order or contract. The next and possibly the most critical step, I really want to emphasize this one, is having all staff and volunteers cleared by DCPS. So anyone working with DCPS, this is whether they are a volunteer or an employee, whether they are in person or virtual, must complete the DCPS clearance process. These clearances are valid for 2 years. DCPS does not accept clearances from any other jurisdiction or agency. This includes DCHR. So if you get a grant with the Deputy Mayor for Education's office, with OSSI, you go through a clearance process for DCHR with them. You also need to go through the DCPS clearance process. This is an overview of the requirements for both volunteers and contractors. The one big difference here is the drug test that is only required for contractors. So contractors or providers, you'll see us refer to is anyone that is providing services to DCPS students, schools, and receiving compensation for that services. That can either be compensation from DCPS or compensation through the partner organization. So these are the steps that an individual would follow if they were considered a contractor or provider. The first step to any of our clearance processes is to submit the clearance application that goes to our clearance team. Once you submit that, you will get next steps on setting up your application station account, which once you set that up, you will get instructions on your scheduling your fingerprint appointment. That the cost for fingerprinting is covered by DCPS, so there's no additional cost for you all to go through the clearance process, but you need to ensure that you are setting up that application station account so that you can go through it to set up your appointment. And then, as I mentioned, if the individual isn't a contractor or provider that's being compensated for their services, they will also need to go through the mandatory drug test. If an individual is a volunteer, meaning they are not being paid for their services either by DCPS or your organization, then they would go through these same steps except for the drug test. So some tips and tricks to the clearance process. We recommend that you maintain a tracker of all your staff volunteer DCPS clearances. It's really on our partner organizations and our schools to ensure that all individuals that are entering the building have a valid DCPS clearance and that you're tracking when they need to be renewed. We recommend when advising your employees and volunteers to please include your organization's contact information when they fill out their clearance application. That way, if there are any issues, you all can be included on that email communication. Also, if you need to check the clearance application status with a DCPS clearance team, their email is listed here. We ask that you please first confirm that the individual has submitted their application. They should have received a confirmation email. And then if you are to reach out to the clearance team, please include the individual's full name and the last 4 digits of their social security number or their birthday in order for them to check the clearance status. Again, emphasizing that partners must ensure that all staff and volunteers have valid DCPS clearances for the duration of their services. This is a particular focus of the district, and failure to enforce this requirement could result in program disruptions or MOA termination. That is not something that any of us want. So please ensure that you are communicating this requirement to staff and have a system for checking those clearances. So the next step, if you are operating outside of regular school hours, you would need to enter into a building use agreement with the Department of General Services. So when we say regular school hours, what that means is outside of the school's regular instructional hours. This can vary based on the school, so please check with your school point of contact. If you are operating, so before school programming, after school programming, on the weekends, during days that school is not in session, you must work with your school and the realty office at the Department of General Services to submit an application to use facilities. Those should be submitted at least 20 days before use. During the summer, that timeline is a bit longer, but during the school year, it's 20 business days. Those applications must be signed by the DCPS principal and then emailed to realty.applications@dc.gov. Please copy our DCPS BUA email on that. That helps our internal DCPS team track building use agreements. DGS will ask for a certificate of insurance as well. In addition to the MOA process where you're asking for insurance, DGS will also ask for it. And that's SPPs might be charged fees for rent, security, and or custodial time. So once you're issued that BUA, you will receive an invoice on the various charges that you might be included. So a couple updates this year. We're very excited, and I know our partners are excited as well that DGS is making efforts to digitize this BUA process. So the first phase of this is they've introduced a fillable digital PDF and online payment. So if you've gone through this process before, you no longer have to, drop off your check in person. There's now an online payment portal. So something that is new this year that I want to flag is if you will be regularly needing field space during after school hours, you must submit a separate field use permit application via RecTrack. So in the past, partners have been able to include on their regular BUA form that they might need field space for 30 minutes every day during after school programming. Right now, while we're transitioning everything over, while DGS is transitioning everything over, that must be submitted on a separate field use permit application via RecTrack. After school partners are not competing for permits or space for operations before 6 p.m. for that outdoor space. This process is just to update to ensure better tracking and facility usage across schools. Partners who have previously secured a BUA with DGS should already have a RecTrack account created and just need to create their credentials. So please email the DCPS permits team for that information. Their email is listed below here on the slide. It's permits.dcps@k12.dc.gov. This is a phased approach to eventually transition all building and field space reservation onto the online RecTrack program. So the last step in this process is for any provider who's providing free programming to DCPS, you will obtain an annual donation agreement. So any organization that provides free programming to DCPS must report their donations each year as dictated by the mayor's office. School program providers will receive a reminder to do so each summer ahead of the school year. This is actually something that is built into your reconfirmation process. So when you're filling out that, updating your profile in the database, you'll see a reminder to report your donation for the school year. Okay, one last pop quiz. True or false? If you have a clearance from DCHR, you do not need to complete the DCPS clearance process. Great. 100%. False. Yes, all providers and volunteers must be cleared through the DCPS clearance process. The DCHR, your own organization's clearance process, your federal background check cannot be used. Only if you have a top security clearance is there a process for that. But please ensure that all of your staff and volunteers are going through the DCPS clearance process. I'm going to leave this up for a second if you want to screenshot it. This is an overview of all the requirements that we just reviewed, including where you can find information and the best point of contact for each step. This is also, as I mentioned, will be available on our slide deck when we share it out later. I'll leave this up for a second. So we know that's a lot to keep track of. So we do have several resources available for you where you can find this information and other helpful resources. The best place to go is our DCPS Partnerships website. That's dcpspartnerships.com. That has all of our information about partnerships, donations, resources for schools and for partners. We also have our school partnerships database. That's where you can update your profile, where you can do your annual reconfirmations. We will send out emails about that to remind you about the reconfirmation process later this month. So that's where you will be doing it through the partnerships database. We also have a school partnerships toolkit, which we're working on updating this year, but that has various resources and guidance on norming with your school and important school level aspects of your partnerships. And then this DCPS resources for partners page is within our website and has several really helpful links and trainings available. A couple years ago, we did a series of lunch and learns with various central services teams, so you can find those all there. So tomorrow we will be hosting part 2 of the training that will go deeper into the policies and requirements that are necessary when you're actually engaged and in our schools starting programming. So if you haven't already registered for that, I have the link here. You should be able to click on the slide to access that. I will also drop it in this Q&A so that you're able to register. Let's see, register tomorrow. If you aren't able to attend that training tomorrow, a recording will be available on our website. This is for both new and returning partners. It will cover various policies and requirements around student safety, equitable access to programming, media events, and several other items. So I'm just going to leave up our contact information here. Abby, who is on the call, her email's listed here, as is myself and our chief, Garrett Tyler. Our general partnerships inbox, something that Abby and I both check, so you'll reach one of us that way. If you have clearance questions, our clearance team inbox is listed here. Any field trip questions, our field trips team is here. And then if you have any questions about the DC vendor portal, their contact information is here as well. Great. Well, thank you all for attending. As I mentioned, we now have some time for questions. So I don't see any in the chat right now, but if you want to start dropping them in, I'm happy to answer anything that's outstanding. Ron, the audio is disabled for attendees. So if you want to drop your question into the chat, then we can answer it there, or we can chat offline at a later time. Oh, I see your question. Can you please chat more about field use and how to get space? Do we have to take separate action to get field space in addition to the BUA? So yes, there is now this additional process. I'll go back to the slide. Um, so in addition to completing your BUA, Veron, for the inside building space, if as part of your programming, you will be regularly using outdoor space, if you're like once in a while, have to or using the playground or something, that's another thing. But if it's regularly part of your programming, then you do need to complete a separate process through RecTrack in order to reserve that space.
Hey everyone, just to underscore what Katie said, the biggest change here, if you were an organization who is already getting a field permit, like you'll just continue to do that process. If the change where we anticipate organizations feeling a change is for our more typical after school providers who have just checked the field box on their BUA. Like Katie said, that's not there anymore. So if you intend to use the field regularly as part of your after school programming, you will still submit your building use agreement application for all the internal spaces that you need following the DGS BUA process of 20 business days in advance. But then separately, you also need to submit this permit request through RecTrack, and they have specific permitting windows. So the late window for fall 2026 will be August 3rd through August 10th. Katie, you're muted.
Thank you. Uh, I was just reading out the question that someone dropped in about funding for programming. So just to read out what Abby responded, that we don't centrally fund partner programming. Sometimes schools do have room in their budget. There are also several grant opportunities on our resources page. DCPS resources for partners. There's a link to DC government grant opportunities, so you might want to check that out. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions here. I'll stay on for a couple more minutes. If anyone is still typing their questions, I'm going to put our contact slide up here again if you want to reach out and have any offline conversations. Again, our DCPS partnerships inbox is a great place to start for that. But I just want to thank everyone for coming out today. We hope we can see you tomorrow as well. And yeah, please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you want to chat more. So thank you all and have a great rest of your week. I see a question, Stephen, you said, is the contact info available for the specific branches of central office? There is, I'll go back here. There is a site that does break out the different offices on our DCPS website. I would also just recommend like Googling specific teams and their specific pages on our DCPS website should come up. Let me try to find you that overview. There have been a lot of transitions recently, so it might not be the most up to date. But if you reach out to us, we can certainly connect you with the right team. Sasha, I see your question here that if you've already submitted an application for MI renewal, but you're a Learn 24 grantee, is it too late to send that email? It's certainly not too late. Yeah, if you want to forward that to our DCPS partnerships inbox, then I will pass that along to the DC Office of Risk Management. Stephen, if you're still on, I'm going to send you a link to our partnerships website that links to several content-based teams, and their contact information should be available on those pages. A question here that a part of the MOA process is to have a specific school, interested school or schools. Is there any way to go through the MOA creation or renewal process before having a specific partnership in mind? Or will we need to have negotiated those specific plans for programming before we can get the MOA processing? We do ask that you have identified a school who is interested in working with you. You don't have to have all the details mapped out. But just to show that you've already had a discussion with the school, they have expressed serious interest in bringing you all on, providing some sort of attestation of that. That can be an email, any sort of like letter of support. If you do have a grant, you can provide that too. But we do ask that you've confirmed at least interest at the school level. Great. It looks like there aren't any other questions. So again, please feel free to reach out, and we hope to see you tomorrow. Thanks all.